One of the coolest groups of Pokemon in the franchise has gotta be the Eeveelutions. But why don't we have more of them? We're currently missing half of the types in the entire franchise for Eeveelutions, and Game Freak hasn't even made a new Eeveelution since Sylveon in Generation 6. With the recent Game Freak server data mines though, we have learned since that there were concept arts for both a flying and steel type Eeveelution that ended up being cut from future installments. So it seems like they're struggling to at least settle on a new design for this really cool family of Pokemon. So if Game Freak isn't gonna do it, then I will instead, and we're gonna make a new Eeveelution for every single type. Today, we'll be adding in every missing Eeveelution to the franchise, meaning that we're gonna have 9 new evolutions that I would personally love to see in future games. All the art today is gonna be designed by RedBRB on Twitter, and I'll be linking their account as well as the concept art they provided in the description below, as they did an absolutely incredible job when it comes to these, and their art is really incredible, and I'd love to see you guys give them some support. This will also hopefully give you guys a bit of a cool visual perception of what it would be like if we had these evolutions in the game, and if there's any other groups of Pokemon you want to see me cover with a similar video, make sure to let me know in the comments below, since we can cover things like fossils or paradox as long as we hit our like goal of 300 likes today. Also be sure to subscribe, because otherwise you might miss part 2 when it comes out, and if you guys want to see these other groups of Pokemon, you'll want to make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss an upload. With that said, of course, let's start off by going over the bare minimum of what we'll be giving all 9 of these evolutions today. In an effort to make these Pokemon as potentially viable as possible, we're going to be adding in 4 moves to every single one of the evolutions, with each evolution itself getting some general, more tailored specific moves. For starters, every evolution is going to be getting 2 very important physical moves, being Crunch and Stomping Tantrum, which are going to be some pretty important coverage, especially for certain typings. For example, with typings like Bug and Flying, you're really going to want that ground coverage with Stomping Tantrum to hit Steel types that would wall you, and Crunch is just a good option, especially when leading into these normal type moves that Eevee's known for. Meanwhile, for non-damaging moves, we're also going to be adding on Sword Stance, as Eevee does have Calm Mind already, but Sword Stance is still a pretty impactful setup move, and just because a lot of the previous evolutions were special doesn't mean all of the ones today will be. Finally, we're going to add on Taunt as well, because Taunt is just a very good support move in general, and while a lot of previous evolutions such as Vaporeon and Umbreon could definitely take advantage of it, I also think some of the new ones today such as Ghost and Seal will be very good users of this move. Now that we've covered all of these baseline buffs for the evolutions, let's start off with our Bug type option. For our Bug type evolution, we're going to be going with a Silk based Pokemon that's going to be named, of course, Silkeon. Now this evolution is honestly so adorable, and I feel like while a lot of people would have aimed for a little bit creepier of an approach, I really love this cutesy Silk Ball evolution, and it looks super huggable, especially in the concept art that RedBRB did for this Pokemon. I love the fact that it just hides in its cocoon ball like that, as it feels like it just fits Eevee so well. It already has the little puff ball for its neck, and making that into a Silk Ball instead just feels really cool. As a Bug type, one of the clearest abilities for this Pokemon has got to be Swarm, but I feel like that for the hidden ability we can go a step further and give it the option for Tinted Lens, which I think will be the best way to run this Pokemon. Now Tinted Lens is a really strong option on Bug types, as it makes it so that way then your Bug type moves that are otherwise resisted by plenty of types such as Steel and Rock can at least deal some actually impactful damage here. Now U-Turn is honestly the best bug move in the game, so we're gonna definitely make this evolution a very physically oriented Pokemon, with 110 attack and 130 speed. As for the rest of our stats, we'll be going a little bit more on the frail side, with our 95 stat in particular going to special defense, and the lower stat points going to HP, defense, and special attack here. As this will make it so that within Silkeon can just be a really good U-turn pivot. They can also benefit from new moves such as First Impression, Leech Life, and Rage Powder. We've already seen that Ogerpon was a really strong fast follow me user in VGC, and while a pure bug type will be far less potent than Ogerpon was of all Pokemon, at the same time, since we have options like First Impression and U-Turn for damage, Stomping Tantrum for some really good coverage, and then options like Sword Stance and Rage Powder to fill in that 4th slot, I feel like Silkeon can still at least pose a serious threat to a lot of opponents with that pure bug type pick. But we still have plenty of other evolutions that I feel like will still be very viable here. For our flying type evolution, we're going to go with Hoveon, a floating mon meant to hover through the skies. Now there was a lot of flying type concept arts going around, but I feel like that the color scheme that RedBRB went with the sky blue and white goes very incredibly with this Pokemon. And for our stats, I want to focus on making this a bit bulkier than our previous entry. We're still going to go with an incredible 130 physical attack stat, and we're going to give it 110 HP. This will make it into a somewhat bulky check for ground types, though both 65s are going to go into defense and special defense respectively. So it'll still have to bank off of that HP, but that's pretty similar to Excadrill's bulk at least. least. For the speed, we'll give it the base 95, as this will be a pretty respectable option, especially if we're going to utilize this as maybe like a choice scarf set, for example. With the sword stance option, we've given all of these physical evolutions anyway. This now actually could be a very good setup win con too, since we'll give it the abilities Cloud9 for its base ability and Aerialate for its hidden ability. Now, I don't want to have to rely on Aerialate necessarily, so we're going to give it some actual flying stab here in case you want to use Cloud9 to shut down opposing weather. So we'll add on dual wing beat and Aerialate that can both be some pretty respectable choices here. We'll also give it Tailwind for support, as this will make better use out of that 95 base speed in case if we're not going for Aerialate as our ability here. But since you guys have heard me mention Aerialate, I think it's time to mention the biggest buff we'll be giving this Pokemon, which will be by adding on extreme speed to its moveset here. As a flying type evolution with stab extreme speed and sword stance feels like it'll be a very good win con for teams. I feel like this powerful flying type option will be very strong for teams, and despite the fact that it's a lot less bulky than a Pokemon like Dragonite, for example, I feel like hitting ghost types here is going to be a pretty big deal for it. Now, fighting types have definitely been on a decline, as we really just have Iron Hands and Urshifu being really dominant picks. But I feel like a really cool new option could be our new evolution Mightyon. Now, Mightyon is going to be a very mighty and strong wall breaker, utilizing its powerful 110 attack and 130 HP as a really strong pick for any team. We're going to also give it that base 95 speed, as this will allow you to give a very good run for its money against Urshifu Rapid at the very least, but it'll be a lot bulkier at the very least as well. I tried to make this a bit different from Havion's stats, so I gave it 65 into special attack instead of special defense here, as this at least gives it a little bit of a difference between the two forms. We still gave the base 95 to speed though, as Guts and Scrappy are both two very powerful abilities, and they could really make use out of a lot of different items at this speed tier of 95. Since Eevee already starts with Facade, we don't need to add a ton to its moveset, so I think options like Close Combat, Knock Off, and Bulk Up will be plenty fine for Mightyon. Now, Mightyon's base 110 attack with Guts on a powerful base 95 speed will be pretty impactful for sure. And while there is some merit using, let's say, Urshifu Rapid going for critical hits, at the same time, Mightyon is a lot bulkier than Urshifu Rapid, and even bulkier than Annihilate, so that pure fighting typing at least does have some actual give here, since while it is a bit worse defensively, added stat points that you do have over these other base 90-ish fighting types is a pretty big deal. And I think that players will be drawn to Mightyon if they really do need that HP and don't care about the secondary typing. Now, Poison's pretty rough when it comes to making this work as a mono type, especially since a lot of poison types already, even with their secondary typing, have to be fairly impressive to stand out. When you think of some of the best poison types we've ever had, your mind's probably going to picks like Eternatus, Glimora, Amoonguss, and maybe even Toxapex if you played singles a lot. And all of these Pokemon really do need things like a secondary typing and a really strong defensive ability to work. But I feel like we finally have a mono poison type that could actually work in the form of Spikeon. Now, among all of the evolutions that Red BRB did, this one has my favorite concept art, and I love the fact that this essentially just is like a hedgehog and it shoots out its quills very dangerously. Because of the fact this does shoot out its quills, I wanted to give it two abilities being Corrosion and Toxic Debris, as I feel like these both fit very well here. With Toxic Debris especially, this fits with the quill shooting animation, and I feel like it could be a very cool way to display it. Since Corrosion could give you the way to poison different steel and poison types, though Toxic Debris could just allow this to poison Pokemon long term. With your incredible 130 HP, you could probably get up 2 T-Spikes here. With a 110 speed stat as well, this will be a lot faster than a pick like Gilmora, though it won't have Meteor Beam to boost its offenses with, so there is some give and take. With base 95 special attack, I did want to add on Nasty Plot here, since it'll be a bit better than the typical Calm Mind option a lot of evolutions get, and with other offensive moves like Sludge Bomb, Mystical Fire, as well as a better version of Protect with Spiky Shield, I think Spikeon can be a pretty cool option that can utilize both Calm Mind and Nasty Plot for very strong and win con options. Poison and Fire alone will be very good coverage into most enemies, and it'll allow it to actually stand out as a really good offensive poison type. I think Spikeon could maybe make itself work, though I'll be honest, I still think it is one of the weakest evolutions, and I think it's just off of the fact that Poison is a hard type to make work with 525 PST. Now we're going from one of the worst typings in the game to one of the best typings in the game, as a lot of people typically associate Ghost as this really good fast offensive typing, as a lot of Pokemon like Calyrex Shadow Rider, Fluttermane, and Dragapult have all been very dividing picks for this archetype of Ghost types. Now as far as Ghost types go, I feel like one option that's really underexplored is the bulky slow option. They can offer a lot of different support to a team, as Ghost has a lot of defensive benefit, and I feel like that our new evolution Solion has a lot of potential to make this work. Now I feel like of the batch today, despite the fact that Wolf is an avid Glaceon hater, I feel like he would at the very least appreciate Solion, as this is going to be a very Perish Trap oriented Ghost type. I tried to make this the love child of Gothitelle with its bulk and Shadow Tag, as well as Mega Gengar with the option of Perish Song and its Ghost typing, and I think it did a pretty good job here. With 110 HP and 130 special attack, you can make this into a very good bulky option for Trigger from teams, especially considering that Solion also only has a base 65 speed. Now, as far as defensive stats go, we did give 65 to its physical defense and 95 to special defense, and considering the fact that Solion is going to get the move Will-O-Wisp, this will at least help a lot with taking hits on the physical side, and meanwhile, as long as you invest fully to that defensive stat, you could still go for Calm Mind and make up that missing special bulk here. I feel like Solion could honestly just exist on the field next to a really good Trick Room partner, as well as a good pick like Amoonguss for Redirection and Spore, and you can get up some serious damage with options like Will-O-Wisp, Hex, Calm Mind, and Moonlight, and you could be a very terrifying pick. Though you could just as easily switch out moves like Calm Mind and Will-O-Wisp for Perish Song and just very quickly decimate an opponent here. Since this is one of the few Pokemon with both Shadow Tag and Perish Song in its moveset, and since we no longer have Mega Gengar, it literally is the only usable one. Now, if you don't feel like using Shadow Tag for some reason, Cursed Body is still at least a cool ability of this Pokemon, but I'll be honest, I feel like you're kind of throwing not running Shadow Tag here, as it's a very, very strong, bulky option with the ability, and the Ghost typing is just a lot better than Gothitelle and Wobbuffet, which are currently the only two legal means of using Shadow Tag right now. I feel like the biggest benefit that this has over other Shadow Tag picks in the format at the current moment is the fact that this is actually an option that would very easily just completely decimate Goldengo, since while you are still weak to moves like Shadow Ball, you at least have a really strong stab that can actually punish it back. And I can't see a world where Solion isn't at least in some way impactful to the current metagame this generation. Taking a step back, we're going to go to a little bit less oppressive of an evolution, and we're going to talk about a ground type option, Dunion. Now, Dunion is going to be taking advantage of a very physically biased stat line with 130 attack, 95 physical defense, and a terrifying 110 speed. With its pure ground typing, I give it two abilities, Earth Eater and Sand Rush, and I feel like this could be a very terrifying partner for any sand team in the format. Now, I know Earth Eater isn't going to be the most impactful ability on a Pokemon that doesn't have a ground weakness, but it felt very thematic to say the least with the Eeveelution family, since Jolteon and Vaporeon both have these health recovering immunity abilities. So it would be very incorrect if I didn't give Dunion Earth Eater at the very least. But it could still have some merit, I guess, stacking next to other sand threats like Garchomp and Excadrill, though I think Sand Rush is going to be your best choice for sure. As far as new moves go, I feel like it's very easy to just add on Bulk Up, High Horsepower, and Rock Slide for some very incredible options into Dunion's moveset, and these would be very good in terms of making this into a strong Sand Rush win con. I think you'll typically prioritize Sword Stance more than Bulk Up, but I feel like you definitely can go for this slower setup with Bulk Up in order to just boost your defensive stat, and with a good Follow Me or Rage Powder Pokemon like Clefairy and Amoonguss, you could definitely still make this set up and get past a lot of the other physical win con from the tier like Garchomp or even Annihilate that would be going for a Rage Fist, since when you have a couple defense boosts, you're really not going to be fearing even a really broken move like that. While I don't see Dunion setting its own weather, I feel like it'd be very wrong to not give it Sandstorm, as it's literally a ground type that's focused around sand, and the name even has Dune, which is in reference to a sand dune. So I gave it Sandstorm, though I really think it's just going to partner with the Tyranitar instead for this. Now, Steel is typically a defensive typing, and Magneon is going to be no exception to this by any means. I tried to make this as far away from Umbreon as possible, but going for a purely defensively oriented evolution, it's kind of hard to do that. I flipped the defense and special defense around and give it 95 HP, 130 defense, and 110 special defense. So this is basically a slightly different Steel type Umbreon. While its offensive stats are going to be anything insane, I give it two really good abilities with Magnet Pull and Filter that'll both offer plenty to different teams. And Magneon will be a serious threat, since with Magnet Pull you can go for this as a really good Steel killer with Iron Defense and Body Press, or you could just use the Filter ability and get really good defensive matchups into common Pokemon that are going for fire, fighting, and ground type moves. Now, Magneon's one of the few Pokemon that I did need to give a fifth move to, as I felt like Iron Head and Flash Cannon were honestly really not necessary in a Pokemon like this. I did opt for Iron Head since at the very least Eevee already does get Curse in its move pool. The Iron Head Curse Body Press sets could at least see some actual value in the tier, though I think typically it's just going to go for Iron Defense, Body Press, Recover, and then a fourth move like Metal Burst to Protect. Metal Burst was a cool pick here, especially since it will be going for more defensively oriented setup most of the time, and Metal Burst is essentially a mix of Counter and Mirror Coat here. It'll deal 1.5 times damage from any attack you took. However, it's not going to be as strong as Mirror Coat and counters 2 times, but it doesn't need to rely on specifically predicting around a physical or special move here. Now, Rock is the worst typing in the entire game at this point, since Ice finally got buffed, and similar to Poison, it really does take a lot to make a Rock type actually workable. However, our Rock type evolution Vacion I think will be a terrifying physical threat. With a powerful 110 attack, 130 speed, and some fairly okay bulk, this will be a strong option that's going to feature moves like Rock Slide and Stone Edge for powerful stab, as well as some really good coverage with Ice Fang in close combat. Similar to the Lycanroc forms, this will be a very powerful Rock Slide option for your team, especially considering its two abilities are Sturdy, which will allow you to deal multiple hits guaranteed, and No Guard, which is going to allow you to never miss Rock Slide and Stone Edge. Especially making sure that Rock Slide never misses so you can get a better chance at flinching both opponents. This will be a very good way to actually have an offensive rock type be viable in the tier finally. Especially because unlike Lightning Arc Midnight, you'll actually have a good speed tier to make use of this. I think this alone will at least give Falcion some sort of viability, and I gave it Sandstorm as well since similar to Dunion, it felt very wrong to not give the rock type evolution Sandstorm, and this could even make its very underwhelming base 60 special defense into a legitimate stat here. I feel like you could even make Falcion just work outright next to Dunion since they could both benefit a lot from Sand being up, and the rock and ground stabs that these two Pokemon would provide next to each other would be a very terrifying duo on Sand teams in VGC. Finally, let's get into our Dragon-type evolution, which is going to be going by Scaleon. Scaleon is going to be a pretty powerful base 130 speed evolution with a 110 special attack stat, and I did give it the 95 physical attack here to make it not just a Dragon-type Jolteon here. And while the bulk is really underwhelming with it being mostly in the 60s, with two abilities that are very powerful being Mold Breaker and Contrary, this really will not matter that much. I added on Draco Meteor, Earth Power, and Flash Cannon here, and this will be a very terrifying special evolution to say the least. Since while it will have to compete with options like Regidrago for that very powerful special dragon type that can just completely nuke a team, if you get up one contrary boosted Draco Meteor on Scaleon, you'll be more than enough to actually just completely decimate most picks in the tier. Now, while I really did want to give it a move like Heat Wave, Mystical Fire, or Flamethrower here, I felt like the coverage was too perfect, since at the very least with this type of Pokemon, you can at least check it with a pick like Corviknight and Levitate Bronzong here, and I didn't want to just make Scaleon into an objectively better pick than every other evolution today, so I decided to steer away from these fire type moves, and I feel like Earth Power will still at least be good enough coverage here. Now, for anyone who's made it to this part in the video, this is typically where I'd give an outro. However, for anyone who's made it here yet, I do want to at least give you guys a bonus evolution by adding on a true EV evolution here with a pure normal type option. This evolution is going to be called Prismeon, and it's going to be a pure normal type option that's going to be more support oriented that can deal a lot of damage. Now, I will say this is the only evolution today that does have stats that break the typical evolution convention, but I still at least kept its BST at base 525, as that way then it's not at least too different from its fellow competitors. For stats, we're going to give it a base 80 in HP, defense, special attack, and special defense, a base 95 in speed, and a base 110 in physical attack. And I feel like this can at least make it into a very good option for both support and also offensively speaking, especially when we consider the two abilities that it's going to have being Friend Guard and Adaptability. For new moves, I gave it Fake Out, Extreme Speed, and Follow Me. As with Friend Guard and Follow Me and Fake Out, you can make this into a very good support piece that'll allow other setup threats such as Swords Dance Garchomp, Quiver Dance Volcarona, and really anything that's going for a setup move to just completely decimate a game. Meanwhile, if you're going to go for Adaptability, an option like Swords Dance, Extreme Speed, and other options like Double Edge that Eevee gets or Facade, you can make Prismeon into a very powerful pick for your team that would absolutely wall break with some very terrifying normal stab. And you even have Stomping Tantrum, which we gave to every option in this video. It would be a great way to cover different steel types. Meanwhile, Crunch would be a great way to handle any ghost types that would be completely immune to your ability. I think this would play similar to Mousehold, where it's going to be a strong Follow Me normal type that can have some serious 50-50s into teams, especially in a closed team sheet setting. But I still feel like at the very least, while Mousehold has Population Bomb to deal much higher damage than Prismeon would, Prismeon also has Extreme Speed with Adaptability, which is a huge advantage over Mousehold, and you also have an Adaptability boosted Double Edge that you can get and just deal a lot of damage without a risk of accuracy here. I feel like Prismeon would be great on these evolution sack teams, or even just as a true pure normal type that could deal a lot of damage in VGC, with some really good priority options to boot, as we don't have a really good priority spamming normal type since the loss of Mecha Kangaskhan in VGC. And I'd be very happy to see this or any of our other 9 options make it into the game one day. If you guys found an evolution that you'd like to see in the game, let me know down below, and if I missed some moves that you think might make some of these Pokemon a bit better, I'd love to hear that as well. On the way down there, if you made it this far, it's probably because you enjoyed the video, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content, as I want to do a ton of other content just like this, where we introduce some more Pokemon into the game concept-wise, and see how they do in VGC. Make sure to check out Red BRB, as their Twitter will be down below. They made all the art you guys saw in today's video, and they did an incredible job. At the time of me writing the script for this, they had initially only taken care of 2 of the sprites, and they whipped up another 8 from their concept art just to have them ready for you guys for this video. So the very least that you guys could do is check them out, as their art is incredible, and really I couldn't have made this video as amazing as it is without them. As for a couple other people that really made this video amazing, of course we have our 2 editors who kill it on every single video you guys see on the channel, as both Dose and Becca put an incredible amount of work to make these videos perfect for you guys. So their links will also be down below, as I'd love it if you guys could give them some support. Finally, if you want to go the extra mile, consider becoming a member, and for just a couple dollars a month, you get some pulls for certain categories of videos, such as when we're gonna buff next, and also you get some special emotes and a badge next to your name. And it's a great way to just show that you support the channel. Our current members are Zeke Zero and Josh K Ultra Player. Thank you guys very much for the added support on the channel. It truly means the world. And with that said, I'll see you guys in next week's video. Until then, peace out, guys.